Like, man, Devon Godchow is holding out. That's absurd. Holding in, that's the line in the sand where you have to start to wonder, are these contracts coming back to bite them? They turned around and handed another one out after that to Ramondre Stevenson. And it turns out, according to Mike Reese, they are. So we'll get to that with all your phone calls, 617-779-7937. You can vote in our big question of the day. Up now at Jones and Mego. A lot of you already have. Will the Red Sox make the playoffs? 54.9%. It continues to drop. Very persuasive. We're very persuasive. Continues to drop. They're saying no. Only 45.1% say yes. So Red Sox still have some work to do with their fan base. And I think the fan base is being very open-minded right now based on the Celtics run, based on how hot the Red Sox are, based on their playoff positioning today. So I wonder how much better that number can get unless they really sustain this for a while. Will they add? Will they sell? What's Cora's role in all of it? We've discussed. And again, you can continue to jump in here on the phones at 617-779-7937. Let me read something Mike Reese wrote quickly, Mego, and then we can get into these extensions and how problematic they are. He says, spending can have a trickle-down effect on others on the team, which currently might be the biggest obstacle to ideal Patriots harmony. And, you know, this is the Bill Belichick school of thought, where you start paying guys, everybody else says, hey, where's my money? Mark Dominic, the former Tampa Bay Bucks GM, who now serves as a front office insider for SiriusXM, said he had to be, quote-unquote, extremely aware of how contracts would be received in the locker room and the agent community when he was beginning his tenure. He said to Mike Reese, ESPN, you're going to start setting your precedent organizationally of who you are and what you're going to be. If you extend a player that just finished in year 3, every agent in the country is going to call in and say, I saw you just did a deal with this guy after 3 years. My guy's available too, or my guy is going to be available next year. You just have to make a decision on what's going to be your consistency. He continued, obviously, quarterback blurs that line a little bit, but everything else, everyone is watching you, and you have to handle how you handle certain things and how you negotiate certain ways. What kind of contracts do you do? They're all putting together their book to be able to come to you in the organization and say, look, I've seen you do this, this, and this. This is why I want that, that, and that. So again, that's Mark Dominic, former GM, to Mike Reese. Do you think this is a problem for the Patriots? And I know none of us like their free agency approach. Is this just another reason to criticize how they approach free agency?
I think it's a really smart way to say that it's setting a precedent, and how consistent are they going to be with that? Because if they want to break that consistency, say with somebody like Godchow, they have to have a very honest conversation with him, which I would imagine would be pretty uncomfortable. To say, you're not as valuable to this team as Ramondre Stevenson is, or as Uche is, or any of the other contracts that they have given out. And so I could see how that could create real discontent in the locker room when it seems like the only thing that this team has going in its favor is hopefully a fresh start. But then again, by re-signing all of these guys, it's eliminating more and more of a fresh start. It looks like the only thing that they want to point to as a major problem with last year's team was the coach. And so that's what it all tells me. Oh, no, these guys just weren't properly motivated. They weren't properly instructed. They weren't properly coached or managed. Like that through these contracts, I think is subtly the message that they're trying to send.
Oh, it's been the whole thing. The whole offseason has been it was Bill's fault. It's not ownership's fault. It's not the players' fault.
And
it's
I
Bill's
think that's
fault.
a problem because I think anybody who has been watching the team for the last several years knows that there is a talent problem on the team. Now, some of these guys, like, it's interesting listening to Curran there say that he thinks that Ramondre Stevenson is maybe the best player on the team. I'm thinking like best player on offense because you still have some studs on defense. I mean, we didn't get to see a ton of Gonzalez last year because he was injured, but he seems to have a ton of natural talent compared to other guys on your roster. Matthew Judon is still definitely better in his position than Ramondre Stevenson is in his respective position. But I think it's like, it annoys me because it feels like they're disregarding the bigger problem, which is the lack of elite talent that we've been talking about for the last 3 seasons and has continued to get worse.
But it makes sense why ownership would do it. It's not our fault. It's Bill's fault.
Right.
And, like, I think Bill was very much to blame, and I'll say this for the millionth time. He didn't deserve to keep his job. I would have fired him in season. I would have fired him before the year even started. I wouldn't have brought him back last year. And so I think Bill deserves to be out of a job. But the idea that it was all Bill's fault, I never subscribed to. Ownership needs their portion of the blame. the bum-ass quarterback who's in Jacksonville now deserves his portion of the blame. So, like, it wasn't all about Bill. That's where I jump off. But this is a problem with handing out all these contracts. It's like, oh, you got to bring back your guys from last year. What's the problem with bringing back your guys from last year? Everybody on last year's team didn't suck. Well, now, guys like Godchow, you see the note on Josh Uche? He just got $3 million from the team. He wants another deal.
Yeah.
Matthew Judon's got to be looking at it going, guys, I'm the actual good player on the team. Everybody else is getting paid. Where the hell's my money? And I know he
very Rihanna.
I know he said the right things in an interview with Rich, but he has to want to get paid. He skipped out on the voluntary stuff. He showed up mandatory minicamp so he doesn't get fined. Like, you're just setting yourself up. And this is another reason why it's better to pay guys outside the organization than reward everybody from the crappy 4-win team. This is another reason why I always hated that approach. And I would have used this money to pay someone like Ridley or Tyron Smith or whomever. That's what I would have done.
Yeah, and I think that would have been the right thing to do, especially if you had brought in a coach from the outside with maybe a little bit more of an offensive-minded way of coaching, head coach, I mean, and gone that direction. Instead, you brought back a defensive coach who was under Bill Belichick and who knew all these guys and who was comfortable coaching most of them. I know he's the linebackers coach, but he was the de facto defensive coordinator. And I think that, Kyle Duggar, Josh Uche, a lot of these guys here that you're seeing come back are a direct result of the head coach that you hired and what he wants and what makes him feel comfortable in his first time ever being a head coach. I think a lot of that's playing into this and playing into these contracts, not to mention the fact you have the room to do it, and you still have an extra $45 million that you could be playing with right now if you wanted to, which is really, I think, the thing that pisses me off the most about this entire situation is that if you had signed all your guys and also made a couple of big moves, no one would care. No one would be complaining about it. We might say, hey, you didn't necessarily have to do that, but if you had gotten Ridley or if you'd gone out and signed one of these other big names and elite players, which is what really this is all about here, elite talent, then this wouldn't be a big deal. But the fact that you didn't makes it so annoying. It's so hollow, You know
what it would be? It'd be 2021.
Right.
We all love that. Now, look, all of those signings didn't end up being great in retrospect, but you got arguably the best player on the team from that free agent class. And you've re-signed another guy like that from that class, Hunter Henry. So Godchow's another one. They might be re-signing. So, they re-signed a ton of their own guys in 2021, and we didn't mind it because they also brought in new players. And for a year, it worked. And there weren't even a lot of great signings there, but for a year, that worked for that team.
Yeah, I think I would feel, I'm sorry, I think it comes back to Calvin Ridley. I would feel really differently about all of this because there are guys on this team who I really wanted to get paid who got paid, like Micah Nwenu. I still think that's the right thing. I feel good about that. I don't understand, as Arcand said, when you have so much room against the cap that you can't do both. They're just choosing not to do both. And now since they've done so much in one direction, I think it's going to set a precedent to the guys who have been around here. And by the way, I think it's been a pretty sucky place to play in the NFL over the last 2 years.
Let me ask a question just to tie in, because I'm happy none of us brought this up, but it's back in the news. Brandon Ayuk, is available. I think we've known that for a while. He thinks he's a goner in San Fran. I'm happy none of us brought this up because I don't think it's realistic. If they do it, great. I'll give them all the credit in the world. I don't think it's realistic. What's more likely to happen?
Okay.
And we'll tie the Red Sox and the Patriots together here. You can jump in on the phone, 617-779-7937. What's more likely to happen? The Red Sox add at the trade deadline or the Patriots trade for a receiver like Brandon Ayuk? What's more likely?
When we say add at the deadline, are we talking about like a big
real
buy?
ad? Yeah, not some like reliever you've never heard of that costs nothing. Like a real ad. A real ad.
Like a starting pitcher.
Brandon Ayuk.
I'm going to say Red Sox. I'm Red
Sox as well. I think it's more like, now look, I don't think either one's happening. We're talking like a 1% chance versus a 0% chance. But I would side with my Red Sox on that one, Arcand. Maybe that's shocking, but I would side with my Red Sox.
2021 was the last. That was when they
fund them.
Yeah.
Hashtag fund Sox. That was 2021 was the last time the Patriots spent. And that was when they traded for Schwarber too, right? So that was the last time either team really did anything.
Why are you snickering back there? You don't like our answer, or you're laughing at the ridiculousness of the question?
I just like that we throw Kyle Schwarber in there as the last time. They're like, oh, they did something. Oh, it's so good.
No, we're pathetic. It's pathetic
it really
to talk
is
about.
Pathetic.
Okay, I mean the guy they signed in free agency was Hunter Henry. Like it's not like that was all that crazy either. Like
Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, they're pretty similar to be honest. No,
like you got to fill this square peg. Okay, here's a round hole. Like. They're not doing anything.
Yeah,
What's
that's
the
true.
last major trade that the Patriots have swung that was like incredibly impactful?
Oh, well,
Assuming it would be like IU.
ones that we thought might be, like Sanu.
Yeah.
Akeem Talib.
Keith Talib was a good
Josh
one.
Gordon.
Okay, but more recent than that. Brandon Cooks.
Cooks, yeah, and then trading him away for the first round pick. That was a big
we're
one.
probably missing a more obvious one, but like the most recent one I can definitely think of, and it didn't work, was Sanu. Like that was what we felt was a big trade that had zero impact.
Trading away Garoppolo.
Had to run in with some seagulls.
617-779-7937. What's more likely, the Patriots add Ayuk, ha, or the Red Sox add the trade deadline, ha? 617-779-7937. Meanwhile, a couple of questions for you. Number one, can the Patriots win on defense? That seems to be what they're trying to do. So that's question number one. Also, is it any of our business what Bill Belichick is up to
Yes.
in his off-season summer of Bill?
Yes!
Let's get to some relationship roundtable with Bill Belichick.